The moment Jonathan Pierce stormed into the Westbridge Grill, the whole room felt it, like somebody had cracked a window in winter and let all the air out. You know, that type, the kind who doesn't just walk into a steakhouse, but owns every inch the second he steps in. Jonathan was that guy. A Wall Street CEO who built his fortune not by lifting people up, but by stepping on anyone who dared stand a little too tall. He came in with the air of a man who'd never been told no. And on this particular night, he decided his target would be the last person anyone expected, a young black waitress named Maya Brooks. I'll never forget the look on Maya's face as she set that menu in front of him, her hand steady, her eyes just a little tired, the way you get after too many double shifts and too few tips. Jonathan leaned in, eyes full of mischief, and spat out a string of words in razor-sharp Japanese. Not loud, but loud enough. The sound of it sliced through the chatter and clinking silverware, turned heads in every corner. Most folks didn't catch the meaning, but the tone was enough mocking, cutting, just plain cruel. Some folks laughed, thinking Maya wouldn't understand a word. Others watched with pity, already writing her off as another nobody, powerless to answer back. Jonathan smiled, settling into his chair like he'd already won. But Maya, she surprised them all. She drew in a slow breath, straightened her back, and answered him in flawless, accent-free Japanese that was so sharp it made half the dining room gasp and drop their forks. You should have seen Jonathan's face, his whole mask cracked. For a second, he looked just as lost and out of place as anybody else. And that was just the start. What unfolded in the next few minutes turned that ritzy Manhattan restaurant into something nobody there would ever forget. See, the Westbridge Grill is the kind of place where money talks and everyone else listens. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, jazz humming above a sea of expensive wine glasses. The night was busy, laughter rolling out of booths, steaks sizzling on the grill, deals being made at every other table. But all that background noise faded the moment Jonathan walked in and targeted Maya. Thing is, Maya wasn't just some nameless server. She carried herself with a quiet grace, the kind you only learn by surviving. You could see the story in her shoes worn thin at the toes, and her smile, warm but worn at the edges. She moved like a ghost through the crowd, mostly invisible, until Jonathan Pierce made her the center of his cruel little show. He kept going, more Japanese, nastier each time. Most folks didn't get the words, but everyone got the meaning. Some diners squirmed in their seats, a few smirked or giggled nervously, and one guy even muttered, "She probably doesn't even know what he said." But Maya knew. That's the part people missed live for a year in Tokyo, learning not just the language but the meaning behind every gesture, every silence, every sharp edge of respect or disrespect. She'd come back fluent, determined to build a better life. But then her dad died, and Maya traded her college dream for late-night shifts and ramen noodles, just to keep her family's lights on and her little brother in school. Most days, her life was about surviving, not shining. Yet even with all that, she never let go of her language, her dignity. She practiced Japanese at night, just a whisper in the dark. Maybe it sounded silly to her brother, but Maya's mom had always said, respect is never wasted. So when Jonathan decided to use his power and money to tear her down, Maya stood there, trembling, yes, but also ready. She'd taken hits before. She wasn't about to let this be the one that broke her. The restaurant held its breath, everyone waiting to see if she'd bow her head and take it. Jonathan relished that Momenthi thought her silence meant victory. Instead, Maya met his gaze and let all those years of study and sacrifice pour out in perfect, ice-cold Japanese. She repeated his own insults, twisted them into something Neiwa mirror that showed him, and everyone else, exactly who he was. And then she switched to English just to make sure nobody missed it. "You thought your words would make me small," she said, clear as day. "But respect isn't something you can bury under arrogance. It can't be bought, it can't be stolen. It can only be given." Now, I gotta tell you, the whole room went quiet. Some folks were clapping before they even realized it. A few cheered. Not everyone was on her side, though. At a corner table, a wealthy couple scoffed. "She's just showing off," the man sneered. But Maya wasn't performing for applause, she was just done hiding. Jonathan tried to rally, sneering that knowing a few phrases didn't make her his equal. He tried to trip her up with some complex Japanese business jargon, something about ketsu and corporate alliances. You could feel the tensei on a few diners waited for her to stumble, hoping order would be restored and the world would go back to normal. But Maya didn't flinch. She answered in Japanese, then translated for the room. It's about loyalty and unity in business. Principles that thrive when leaders respect the people around them. Principles you seem to have forgotten. Another wave of gasps, a few scattered claps. The manager grinning from the bar like he'd just watched his team win the Super Bowl. Jonathan was losing his grip. You could see it in his eyes. His power, built on fear and intimidation, was unraveling. He slammed his hand on the table, spit out one last bitter line. You're still just a waitress. You serve. I command. It didn't land the way he hoped. If anything, the crowd turned on him harder. Power without respect is weakness in disguise. Maya shot back, voice steady as stone. People stood up, clapped, some even cheered. Phones were out, streaming, recording a downfall of a CEO, the rise of a waitress who refused to back down. Jonathan looked around, realized this humiliation would follow him beyond these four walls. But it was too late, the story was already out. Then, just when you thought the night couldn't get wilder, a new figure stepped out from the back, a man in a tailored suit, calm and steady. Jonathan looked relieved for half a second, thinking maybe this guy was there to save him. Nope. The man walked straight to Maya, offered his hand, and introduced himself as Daniel Whitman, Director of International Investments. What you did here tonight, he said, that's leadership. I'd be honored to have you on my team. The place erupted. Folks stood up, applauding, some whistling. Jonathan just stood there, small for the first time in his life, watching his power slip away. Maya shook Daniel's hand, still humble, not gloating, just standing tall in her own worth. Then, out of nowhere, a Japanese executive who'd been dining quietly came over, told Maya her language was flawless, her strength rare, and offered her a business card. Another door opening, another new future waiting. Jonathan slunk out, head down, every step a little heavier than the last. The phones caught it all, his retreat, Maya's victory, the shift of power right there on the marble floors under the chandeliers. When the door finally thudded shut behind him, it sounded final. But Maya didn't even watch him. Gosh turned to the room and said, respect is free, and it belongs to everyone. No title, no wealth, no power gives anyone the right to take it away. For a long moment, no one moved. A woman at the bar wiped tears from her eyes. A young guy whispered, I'll remember this night forever. People went back to their meals eventually, but nobody would forget what happened. The air had changed. Maya Brooks, invisible an hour before, was now the woman everyone admired, the one who stood up, not just for herself, but for every invisible person who's ever been told to sit down and take it. So, if you felt something hearing this, let me know in the comments. Tell me about a time you stood up when someone tried to knock you down, or when you wished you had. Was Maya right? Was Jonathan just a villain? Or did he get what he deserved? Debate it. That's what this place is for. And don't forget to subscribe, because as long as folks like Maya keep rising, I'll keep telling their stories. Arrogance roars, but respect endures.